I was a people-pleasing, overachieving perfectionist for the majority of my life. I thought when I get to X accomplishment or life achievement, then I can rest. Then I'll have made it. But the goalpost would only keep moving. I had a brain that wouldn't shut off, restless sleep, hormone issues, and even when I tried to rest, I could never feel still. I changed careers, I took more time off, tried to get more sleep, took certain supplements, and these things helped a little, but I still felt burnt out deep in my bones. It took me a while to realize that the root cause of my burnout was me. My constant striving, constant achievement, constant comparison. My internal world never slowed down, and it finally caught up to me. Burnout for me looked like mood swings, a hairline trigger, painful periods, insomnia, degrading health, and worst of all, a decreased capacity to see joy and goodness around me. Motherhood kind of pushed me over the edge in the best way because once the reckoning happened, healing came. Slowly but surely, stillness arrived, and I felt like I experienced true rest for the first time in my life. I know what it feels like to feel burnt out deep in your bones, and today I want to share some shifts and things that allowed me to heal my burnout and to break out of that hustle culture burnout cycle I was in for most of my life. Whether you have a busy in-person job or you're an overwhelmed stay-at-home mom, I hope this video gives you some things to chew on. One of the first things that allowed me to experience and taste like real rest and to heal from that burnout state was radically declutter my life. My house, my technology, commitments, decluttered, simplified. It sounds funny, but I actually think my healing phase really started around like 5 or 6 months postpartum when I radically decluttered my closet, and I've shared about this before. I had this unexplainable need to just simplify my environment. It was like all I could get my hands on. As I was decluttering, it was like I was making space to be able to rest. I think a lot of us really struggle with rest because we're operating at such an unsustainable fast pace. But also, if you're like me, we're so distracted in our life, there's a lot under the surface that hasn't been dealt with, whether that's like old hurts, pains, traumas, resentments, old lies, whatever it is, just emotions, things that we don't really make this space to deal with as they come, and so we shove them down. And in our modern age, I think it's easy to do that because we can always distract ourselves on social media, or we could go buy more things. It was like I was making space physically for the decluttering that was happening in my internal world, if that makes sense. But what I found was there was a lot buried there under the weight of all the distraction and the clutter. Things that need to be confronted, need to be released, need to be worked on in order for you to be able to really breathe, really like be still in your life. But as long as we have those distractions, if you're anything like me, you're gonna go to them because it's easier. It's easier to be distracted, I think. Creating this space to purge like my belongings, my technology use, that allowed the space to be created in my life for me to really cultivate and carve out time for rest. The next shift I had to make, that took a very long time, was I had to sever the intricate link I had made between my worth and productivity. If you're like me, you were an overachiever, you love to get things done, you do to-do lists, you feel good about yourself based on how much you got done that day. I get it. Like, that was in my bones. It was more than just the physical things in my environment, the fact that I was working a lot, the fact that maybe I was staying up too late, all these things. It was more than that. It was that deep down, I tied my worth to what I could produce. And that kind of drive, that was what was burning me out. It was this constant drive to push, to do more, to be more, and to produce more. If you are someone that is trying to untie your worth from your productivity, the first thing that I would ask you, which is what I had to ask myself, is where is that coming from? We do live in a modern society that really puts a lot of value on production, really puts a lot of value on hustle culture. For sure, that is influencing our decisions. But if you're anything like me, the inflammatory nature of that identity, that came from a deep-seated feeling like you had to perform to be lovable. Did you feel like you weren't valuable unless you were performing a certain way, you were acting a certain way, you were achieving certain things? Did you feel like that was the way that you could earn love, earn people's affections, earn people's approval? And this is where the real shift came for me, was that it's not about being productive. Often it comes down to people pleasing and wanting to be seen as worthy. Our currency of worth is producing, accomplishing, achieving, and saying, see, like I'm worthy of love because I've done all these things and I've accomplished all of these things. Ultimately, in the underbelly of people pleasing, it is about control. If I just control myself and I perform for my worth, I can assure myself that I will be good enough and I will feel loved. That always failed for me. I was taking a good thing, work. God designed us to work. It is a good thing to work. But I took a good thing and I made it a God thing. I made it sovereign over my life. I found my worth in what I created instead of my creator. And it left me empty and exhausted. I mean, you do that for 2-3 decades, you're gonna feel burned out too. The first step, I think, in those things is bringing awareness to those narratives, bringing awareness to when it comes up, when it's motivating your actions. I notice a difference now, even in the way that I clean the house. It is good work. I love creating a safe space for my family. I no longer feel like I have to clean my house because I'm embarrassed over its state, or if I don't clean my house, I will have nothing to show for the day that I had. It's a good thing to work. It's not a good thing to think that the work that you produce is going to make you lovable or unlovable. The next thing that I did, this is a tangible thing that really helped me heal from burnout and to break that cycle, was I really focused on replenishing my minerals, refueling and nourishing my body. My body was physically struggling. It was like physically showing the signs of burnout, especially postpartum. Around this time, I was introduced to the work of Morley Robbins, Dr. Ray Peat. I actually started testing my mineral levels by way of my hair and regularly keeping track of those. And what I saw when I took that first test was the physical data telling me that my body was depleted. I was at the end stage of stress. What I am doing is unsustainable. Speaking of, I'm gonna take a sip of my mineral drink for a second. A body that is physically depleted, physically undernourished, will have a very difficult time healing from burnout and feeling rested, because it will be in a constant state of fight or flight. It'll be constantly in survival mode to get you those nutrients, to get that food, to stabilize your blood sugar. Physically showing up for myself, making sure that I was eating regularly, I was eating enough, I was stabilizing my blood sugar. I focused on my main 4 macro minerals: sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium. I have an entire YouTube video that deep dives into why minerals are so important. An entire module in my course, The Nourished Mama. When I was the most depleted, my calcium and phosphorus ratio, which is what I talk about in the course as well, that's your nervous system ratio, and mine was completely out of whack. It was a sign of being hyperstimulated and overworking for many, many years, and I physically needed to give my body the raw materials to allow myself to find rest, find safety. The next shift I made that was so monumental, it might be my favorite, really prioritizing time in creation, in nature. I could wax on and on about all the studies, from how it affects our circadian rhythm, how even grounding is healing for inflammation in your nervous system, what it does for people. I don't actually think that we need all of these studies to tell us what most of us intuitively know and feel, which is that when we are outside, we feel more rejuvenated and rested. It was looking around at like what has been made, the beauty that is in this world, balm for my heart, especially after times of grief and hardship, which we've had the last few years. It was so truly restorative to me. And as someone that never used to be like an outdoorsy person, genuinely, I am now someone that's obsessed with being outside. I'm not outdoorsy necessarily. You know, you're not gonna find me camping, I'm gonna be honest, but you will find me outside. The next shift that was very influential in cultivating rest and healing from burnout was I started to play. If you're a parent like me, like, you know the importance that play has for kids. They work through their emotions through play. They build social interactions. They heal. They develop. All of these things happen through play. And then somewhere as we grow up, we just completely cut off that part of ourselves. Coming from a background of being obsessed with productivity, I rarely did anything just for the fun of it. During my healing phase, now there was like room to play. There was room to just do things for the heck of it. And something I started doing was I started painting. I wish I could tell you that I uncovered this hidden talent and that I'm secretly a Picasso. Nope. They sucked. They looked like a 5-year-old did them. But it was so fun. It didn't matter what it looked like. I had such a blast painting. I felt like a kid, honestly. It is a beautiful thing to have joy and satisfaction over like accomplishing something. But if our entire life and our entire days are about checking things off of lists, doing things to finish them, How devoid of joy is that? Play can be so many things. It's something that gets you in the flow state. It's something that you enjoy the process of, not just the end result. And bringing more play and cultivating that in my life, and as a family, it like infinitely brought not just rest, but just like burst our capacity for joy in our day-to-day life. A major shift that I had to make in healing burnout and breaking out of that cycle was learning to embrace my limitations and not resent them. I've talked about this on my channel before, but I used to be someone that hated limitations. I can do anything I want if I just put my mind to it. The world was my oyster. I had no limitations. And what seemed like freedom in that mindset, it actually did not lead to freedom in my life. It led to health issues, burnout, exhaustion. Limitations are no longer something that I resent. And they are there to provide the structure in which I can thrive. One of the ways I started tangibly practicing this is my family and I started practicing a Sabbath. This is something I learned about in the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. It is a day carved out for rest. No work is done. We do very minimal technology. We don't cook elaborate meals. We usually have leftovers. We don't do dishes. It is a day, a sacred day, that we carve out for rest. Right now in modern America, we think we can operate without limitations. Living in denial of your God-given limitations, it has made us more sick, unhappy, and burnt out as an entire culture. My husband and I used to spend our weekends window shopping, getting errands done, watching TV, a lot of things that like at the time we thought this is how we rest. They were not restful. They were not restorative. This isn't about demonizing work or ignoring the important, necessary tasks that we have to get done. It's about instead recognizing our deep need for rest and that it is not optional. It is not something that only we do if we have the time or the space for it. Out of true rest, we give our best work. It was very difficult at first to lay down my control. This has to get done. A mom never rests. That's not in my job description. And to an extent, if you are a mom, your kids always need taken care of, right? But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that narrative, that lie in your head that says you never get a break and you never get to lay this work down and you don't get rest. Like that's not available to you. No, it's not just available to me. It is necessary to me. So we are going to do whatever we need to figure out how to cultivate rest as a family. The Sabbath, the day, that's the day when I find that a lot of things like deep in my heart that need to be dealt with, that's the day when they come up. Because I have carved out space for them. I've carved out space for stillness. When I need a good cry, when I really connect with my husband, when my daughter and I have the sweetest moments, like it felt like a risk to do, but it has paid off immensely. The last shift I made, something I learned that enabled me to heal this lifelong struggle of hustle culture burnout, this cycle I was constantly in. I had to learn to make boundaries. If you are a people pleaser or recovering people pleaser like I am, you probably struggle with making boundaries. One of my favorite books on this is literally called Boundaries. It's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. Townsend, and they define boundaries as this. I have a quote. A boundary shows me where I end and someone else begins, leading me to a sense of ownership. Knowing what I am to own and take responsibility for gives me freedom. How much work we're doing, not just the physical work, but the emotional work that is driving us to burnout. How much of that is because we are constantly taking on that which is not ours to take on. I told myself for the longest time that it was kindness, that I was taking other people's burdens, I was sharing in people's griefs. But what I was really doing, trying to fix people, trying to save people, being a people pleaser, that is not kindness. That is not loving. What I was really doing was muddying the waters between what was mine to own and what was theirs to own. Sometimes it can look like having hard, confronting conversations, and sometimes it doesn't look like confronting anyone at all. And it looks like everything about what you are choosing to emotionally take on versus leaving it there and realizing that is not mine to pick up. A lot of pregnant women have to go through this of saying like, if I'm going to protect my energy, I'm going to protect my peace, I have to make boundaries of what I will allow and will not allow. Making boundaries about who can be in the room when you deliver. How many women I know had people in the room of their delivery that they did not want. They felt like, I have to have this person. I feel guilty if I don't have this person. And ultimately what this does is create a life of you constantly compensating, constantly shifting. You're taking up things that are not yours. You're carrying burdens that are not yours to carry. It is exhausting. When I started to make boundaries, having to learn the lesson that it is my job to make them and it is my job to uphold them. Oh, well, I said I was only going to answer calls at this time, or I said I wasn't going to respond to emails at this time, but here I am at 10 o'clock at night responding to this email. That is my responsibility, taking radical responsibility for what is yours to own and releasing the rest. There has been so much freedom in my life. There's so much rest in those boundary fences around me. I hope this gave you things to chew on. I make videos most weeks about slow living, minimalism, intentional motherhood, holistic health, all of those beautiful, lovely things. If you're into that, I'd love to see you join our community. I will see you in the next video.